Welcome to the Arkansas Herald's News with Brenda. I'm Brenda Brandenburg. Terry Thornton, 57, turned himself into authorities on February the 11th on a warrant issued for the rape of a 5-year-old girl. The report was phoned into the Arkansas Child Abuse Hotline on December the 30th. The child was interviewed on January the 4th, confirming that she'd been raped by Thornton at his home. Thornton admitted to the rape, saying that he stopped once he realized what he was doing. He remains in custody and is set to appear in court on February the 22nd. Senior Supreme Court Justice Scalia, 79, was found dead at a West Texas ranch on Saturday during a hunting trip. His death has set off a political battle among Republicans who have voiced their intent to block any nomination made by President Obama. The Senate group says that a successor should be named by the newly elected president. President Obama plans to move forward with his selection and subsequent nomination.
This is Q. Byram Hurst, and this is Know Your Rights. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was the unusual situation when people have insurance. You acquire insurance in the event that a tragic event occurs where you might be injured or you may have property damage. But when that occurs, your arrangement with your insurance company immediately changes. On the one hand, at one time you were on the same page and now you are potential adversaries. Any time that you suffer a casualty damage such as property damage, personal injury, bodily injury from a wreck, you need to call your attorney immediately, because from that moment on you become an adversary with your insurance company. And what you want to do is make that company pay the maximum amount that you deserve, because that's what you paid your premium for. So remember that if you should have an unfortunate incident. If you're not satisfied with your insurance company after an accident, or if they're not responsive to your needs, or they don't want to fully cover the damages they promised you they would pay when you bought that policy, you call me. We'll make them pay, and we'll make them pay a fair amount, a reasonable amount, and what you're entitled to because of your contractual arrangement with that insurance company.
"29-year-old Rex Davis lost his life on Sunday, February the 14th at approximately 4:30 a.m. when he apparently lost control of his scooter. The accident occurred on East Grand, just west of Malvern Avenue here in Hot Springs. Davis was reportedly not wearing a helmet. Tuesday, the Judicial Discipline and Disability Commission voted to recommend interim suspension of Hot Springs Circuit Judge Wade Nairmore following the recent charges of negligent homicide in the hot car death of his son, 18-month-old Thomas. Nairmore was officially charged on February the 11th after more than 6 months from the death on July 24, 2015. Special Prosecutor Scott Ellington was appointed to the high-profile case and was quoted as saying, "When it finally comes out, you'll see what I was dealing with." Nairmore remains free on a $5,000 bond. The Hot Springs City Board of Directors met Tuesday night and voted 6-1 in favor of the rezoning of the property located at the corner of Bell and Alpine Streets near Oaklawn Park. Oaklawn has purchased the property and plans to make the area into a parking lot. Much public opposition was expressed during the meeting, alleging that this will cause an already dangerous area to become even more dangerous. Several pedestrians have been struck in the crosswalk leading to this area, and there is an elementary school just adjacent to the property. Mayor Ruth Carney was the only vote that was against the rezoning. The Clark County Sheriff's Department has arrested Hilda Daves of Amity and charged her with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and first-degree battery in connection with the death and attempted murder of her grandchildren. Reporter also reported that one of the children was on the way to a Hot Springs hospital. Following the call, authorities forced their way into Dave's home and found her inside with a, quote, apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, end quote, along with an unresponsive child. Both were transported to CHI St. Vincent, where the child was pronounced dead upon arrival. The other child was reportedly treated and released from a Little Rock hospital. Toxicology reports on both children showed, quote, the presence of prescription-controlled substances, end quote, and other related controlled substances were found in Dave's home, according to authorities. 49-year-old Daves remains in custody.
Hi, I'm James and this is Justin's. We are the Car Doctor. Tonight we'd like to talk to you about the importance of tire pressures and wiper blades. Most of you know that we have a continuing oil change special for $32.99. That includes up to 5 quarts of oil. And for all you diesel truck owners, we have an oil change special for $65.99, which includes up to 12 quarts of Castrol Tection Extra 1540 diesel oil. Here we are in the beginning of another rainy season. It's time to change your worn out wiper blades. Nobody remembers to change their wiper blades until it's pouring down rain. Come in and see us, a Car Doctor, and we will inspect your wiper blades for you for free. Justin?
Weather plays a big part on the pressure in your tires. Hot weather may make your tires overinflated. With that being said, tire pressure plays a big role in fuel economy and tire wear. Overinflated will wear the tire in the center. I don't know about you, but tires are expensive.
Very.
So knowing these few tips will assist you in better fuel mileage and less wear and tear on your tires, therefore saving you money. So come in and see us at Car Doctor and we will adjust your tire pressure for free. Back to you, James.
If you have any technical questions about your vehicle, you can email us at editor@arkansasherald.com. And next week we'll try to address all of them. You can also call us at 501-62-FIX-IT.
Hi, this is Brenda Brandenburg with the Arkansas Herald, and I'm visiting with David Hughes with the Spa City Blues Society.
That's it.
Did I
You
get
got
it right?
You got it
All
right. That was awesome.
And I hear you have got a lot of things going on in Hot Springs.
We have got so much going on. Unbelievable. The Spa City Blues Society has been around for 20 years, and our big thing is putting on a blues festival, but we've added a lot of other things to that recently, including our next event, the Hot Springs Gumbo and Crawfish Festival.
That was the first thing that I did with the Arkansas Herald last year, and that was a huge success.
I actually missed it last year. I got hung up at a meeting in Little Rock, so I missed all the festivities, but look forward to this one. It's going to be a good time.
Is it still going to be at the parking deck where it was last year?
Actually, it's going to be in Hill Wheatley Plaza,
okay.
Right downtown Hot Springs, right next to the Visitor Center. The parking garages are backup.
I see.
If it rains, we'll move
Okay.
back to the parking garage.
Okay.
And it's going to be April 23rd from 2 to 6 p.m.
Okay.
Hill Wheatley Plaza. General admission tickets are $16.82. And you may wonder why that's so exact, but it includes tax. We have to
Okay.
include the tax and
Okay.
things. The general admission is no mud bugs, so no crawfish. You just get to sample the gumbo on that one.
Okay.
If you want to have a flat of crawfish, mud bugs with the corn and potatoes and all the fixins, $27.37.
Okay.
You can order that all online, spacityblues.org. You can go there and you can link to the Gumbo Fest website. Also, we're looking for teams. If you have a gumbo recipe, you need to come out and be a part of it. Teams of 4 are $50 to enter. I think we had 25 or 26 teams last year, and we'd love to have a lot more this year.
There were some interesting types of gumbo too.
I
There
bet
was like
there
an
were.
Irish gumbo, and it was
There's
really
so much
good.
you can do with
Yes.
a gumbo.
Yes,
First, you make a roux.
it's a great time. That was so much fun.
But that's our big one coming up.
Okay.
This will be the second year that we've done it. It replaces our lobster party. We were selling lobsters to order before that, and that kind of fizzled out, and so the gumbo took its place, and it's been very successful.
Okay. And then what else have you got?
Oh my goodness. Coming up May 21st, everybody's going to love this one, the Hot Springs Craft Beer Festival. And this will be our third festival. It's going to be at the Hot Springs Convention Center. Steve Arison and all the folks down there have been really great to work with. This is the brainchild of Rob Pratt, who put all this together and has developed it. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. VIPs can get in from 5 to 9. It's two different ticket prices, $25 for the 6 to 9 admission. That's just the regular admission. For a VIP pass, it's $55, and it gets you in an hour earlier. You get to sample some beers that the regular guys don't get to do.
Now, do you play any blues while we're there?
There will be some music there. There will
Okay.
be some blues music. There will be some a DJ at the Gumbo Festival playing some Zydeco and blues and keeping the party going. But we will have a live band or a live act for the beer festival. John Calvin Brewer from here in Hot Springs has done it the last couple of years. I don't know who we'll have this year,
Okay.
but it will be good.
Okay.
You can buy tickets at the door for $35, and we do have designated driver tickets for the teetotalers that don't want to, that need to take everybody home.
Yeah.
$15 for that. Get you in. There will be food vendors there, so there will be, besides the beer, it'll be samples of Hot Springs' finest.
Sounds wonderful.
Rob Pratt is your contact. If you'd like to find out more about it, go to hscraftbeerfest.com or go to spacityblues.org, and you can link up with that one as well. Tickets are available. We're looking for sponsors, looking for beer vendors too. So definitely want you to be involved in that.
And that's May.
That is May the 21st.
Okay.
The Gumbo Festival is April 23rd. That's the Saturday after the Arkansas Derby.
Okay.
So we tried to do it there because not a whole lot was going on. And then May 23rd will be the Craft Beer Festival.
All right.
Now the big one, the granddaddy of them all, what we live for, is the Hot Springs Blues Festival.
Oh, yes.
That will be Labor Day weekend in Hill Wheatley Plaza once again. Saturday and Sunday, September 3rd and 4th, and we don't have a lot of information out yet. We're still working on it, but I can tell you there will be some very good acts, some very good blues acts there. It'll be things that you don't want to miss, stuff you won't hear anywhere else. Again, spacityblues.org. Look for that for information. I can tell you some of the acts that are going to be there that we have confirmed. Our Blues in the Schools kids, the Spa City Youngbloods, will play. They represented us in Memphis at the Youth Showcase in the International Blues Challenge. Stuart Baer and Lance Womack were our competitors in the solo duo category at the Blues Challenge. And then our host band, our house band at our bi-weekly jams, the Spa City Blues Band will be playing. And then we have the winner of the International Blues Challenge, the Delgado Brothers Band, will be coming in from Ventura, California to play.
Wow.
So those are confirmed. We have those down. It's going to be a great time. The Blues Festival is always a blast.
Oh, it is. It is.
And you can count on the music being a good time. 2 days worth of great blues. We'll have workshops regarding blues in the schools, making instruments, writing songs, singing, all kinds of good stuff.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
SpaCityBlues.org. That's where you want to go for all your information about
We'll
the
get
Blues
that on the
Society.
screen, too.
And I definitely want to tell you, the first and third Wednesday of every month, we do a blues jam. It's at the Big Chill. Starts at 8 o'clock. And if you're a musician, you want to come in and play, bring your instrument, sign up, and be a part of what we do.
That sounds fun, too. Well, we will get all this information out to our viewers, and we'll bring you back as we
Definitely.
draw
Would love to
closer
come back.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to bring a musician and let them play for you
that'd
guys.
be great. That'd be great.
So
Thank you,
anything
sir.
we can do, please let us know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda.
Arkansas Herald, and I am visiting with somebody very famous in Hot Springs. His name is Dr. Jack Sternberg, and we're going to learn a little bit about him and his involvement in Hot Springs, and maybe learn a little bit about some medical things today.
That'd be great.
All right?
Yeah.
So tell me how you got to Hot Springs and where you're from.
Well, I don't like to claim that I was born and raised in New York City, but I have to. But I did leave New York City when I was 17. I went to Buffalo, New York for my undergraduate in medical school. And then when I finished that, I went to Cleveland. I did my internship residency and chief residency at Mount Sinai Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio. While I was there, I decided that I really enjoyed working with cancer patients. At that time, medical oncology was not even a field yet. But when I spoke to my chief of medicine, he said, well, let's send you off someplace, get you trained, and have you come back here to Cleveland. He found out that the best place in the country was MD Anderson Cancer Institute, or now it's called Cancer Center. And I did 2 years of training in Houston. While I was in Houston, I decided I really liked being in a place that didn't have winter. I mean, and snow and ice and all those things, but I didn't like Houston. And my wife didn't like Houston. So we then looked for a place in the South, and we found Little Rock, Arkansas.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so in 1977, my wife and I and my two children, we moved to Little Rock. I started a practice. I always tell the story that at that time I was the actual first fully trained medical oncologist in the state of Arkansas.
Wow.
And I say it that way because there were a few doctors who were hematologists who were doing some cancer chemotherapy, but they were never actually trained as cancer doctors.
And that was in 77?
1977.
Okay.
At that point, I started a practice. I set up the oncology units at both St. Vincent's Hospital and Doctors Hospital. Later, helped set up the unit at Baptist Hospital, and then had a absolutely magnificent career for 29 years.
Wow.
In 2004, a number of things happened. Two of my partners decided they wanted to retire. I would have had to go back to being on call every other weekend. At that point, after 29 hard years, I really was getting tired of what I was doing. I wasn't burnt out, but I could see it on the horizon, and so I decided that I too would retire. At that point, my son-in-law and my daughter, who live here in Hot Springs, my son-in-law actually recommended that I buy the lot across the creek from them in Lotus Valley, and I said, "You really want your father-in-law living next door to you?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I immediately bought the lot for someday in the future, and immediately within a few months started building a house. In 2006, I actually fully retired. I moved down here. My wife had already been living here for about 6 to 8 months while I transitioned, and then I just did nothing for a year and a half.
Well, I bet that was a lot of fun.
Well, it was at first.
Uh-huh.
I took up golf, which I had never done as a doctor. I was one of the few doctors that never learned how to golf until I was 56 years old. But after discovering that I wasn't very good at it, it wasn't as much fun. I thought I would do a lot of bass fishing with my new bass boat, but I couldn't find anybody in retirement that bass fished. They all wanted to golf. So one day, I was playing golf, and I saw that there was a tournament at the Hot Springs Country Club. Mm-hmm. And I saw this table, and they were giving out gifts to the people who were playing in the tournament. And I walked over to them and I said, "What's this golf tournament?" And they said, "Oh, well, we're the Charitable Christian Medical Clinic." And I said, "What's a Charitable Christian Medical Clinic?" And they said, "Well, we're about the largest charitable clinic in the state. We're open 3 days a week and 2 nights a month, and we have multiple doctors and multiple specialists." And I said, "Really?" They said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm both a medical oncologist and a board-certified internist." They said, "When can you start?"
Yeah, I bet.
You bet. And I said, "Well, you know, after 30 years of just doing a specialty, so much had changed in internal medicine. I didn't feel comfortable in being an internist. The medical diseases remained the same, but the therapies had evolved and changed. So I spent a month just shadowing one of the internists and studying, just like I was back in medical school. Mm-hmm. And after a month, I decided I was ready. And then for the next 6 years, I practiced as a volunteer, unpaid physician. I always told my patients that now I was good for nothing. and I loved it, really enjoyed it. I mean, you're not under time constraint. You're not working to make sure you have to pay the bills and your overhead. The joy of being a doctor and practicing medicine returned.
Now, do you still do that, Dr. Jack?
Well, I was furloughed about a year or so ago because the state of Arkansas had the private option, the Medicaid expansion. We had 1,000 patients, and because of the expansion, 850 of our patients went on Medicaid.
Wow. Okay.
And because of it, we were down to about 150 patients, and suddenly there was not as great a need for all of us, and so we were furloughed.
Right.
a couple of months ago, I got called back. I received a phone call, could I come back to work every other Tuesday? And I said, sure, but why? And they said, well, there's been a lot of problems with getting people recertified for the private option, and that's a whole nother story. But a lot of patients that had the private option lost it because of problems with recertification, part of it being the computer system, part of it that they didn't know they had to do it and threw away the letters. There's a host of reasons why it happened. But suddenly there were a number of patients that had to come back to the clinic because they had lost their insurance. In addition, a number of new patients had moved to the state, and they were having trouble getting on the private option. So all of a sudden, we started seeing patients again, not any place near what we had in the past, but it was great to go back to work. But I feel sorry for those folks that had doctors and now had to leave them and come back to the clinic.
Right. Well, and you know, it's going to evolve. We don't know what's going to happen. So,
Right.
And I understand you're also the chairman of the Garland County Tea Party. Is that right?
Yes, I have been, in 2012, I started going to the Tea Party, and about January 2014, they asked me to be the chairman, and so for the last 2 years, I've been the chairman, and it's been rewarding, it's been challenging, but it's been mostly a great time.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of stories you can tell us, so we're definitely going to bring you back.
Okay,
And I appreciate you coming down here and talking to us.
well, it's great.
And maybe I'll bump into you at the charitable clinic. I've been up there myself a couple of times volunteering, but it's been a while, so I need
Okay.
to get back into that.
That'd be great,
All
we'd
right?
love to have you.
Nice having you here.
Nice,
My name
nice
is
to
Philip Robbins, and I'm here today representing Mike's Heating and Air. Between the techs here at Mike's Heating and Air, we probably have 150 years of service experience behind us. Heating and cooling products, we feature Ream, and you get 10-year warranty, parts warranty, 1-year labor on an install, and we'll stand behind our product. You get 24-hour service, a live person when you call for an emergency service call. All right, we have a lot of satisfied customers. Most of our customers have been with us over 20 years, and be sure and put a Ream in your house. So call Mike's Heating and Air.
Hi, this is Brenda Brandenburg with the Arkansas Herald, and I have Jan Morgan with me. And I'm sure many of you know her. She is a Second Amendment advocate, as well as a instructor for concealed carry classes, and owns the gun cave in
Yes.
Hot Springs. Is that
Yes,
right? Did I get it all?
absolutely. You
Okay.
did.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Second Amendment advocacy.
Well, okay, good question. 24 years, I was a television news anchor and reporter. My primary beat was police beat, which means I covered all of the blood and gore, the crime, and that sort of thing. And I saw on a daily basis way too much. Too many people who became victims of crime, rape, assault, murder, because they were not armed. And I really started feeling like I can do more to help my country if I become a firearms instructor and actually teach people the skills they need to save their lives rather than sitting and talking about it every night on the news. So I completely did a career change, and I'm talking about just overnight. Said, I think I'll do this instead, and made a quick change. As a matter of fact, I had a 2-year contract with WWL-TV in New Orleans at the time, and I broke a contract
Wow.
to get out of television and start doing what I'm doing, and got busy about that. That came together rather quickly, and now, lo and behold, I'm still doing TV. I'm back on
Were
Fox.
you,
but-
I'm curious, when you were a reporter and you were going out and doing stories like that, were you carrying at the time?
Sometimes, yes.
So you were an advocate even then?
Yes.
of
Well,
concealed
not
carry?
publicly an advocate, just carrying, but
Right.
not publicly out there fighting for the 2A cause.
Mm-hmm.
What I discovered when I started taking firearms classes was that, because I don't believe in just taking a concealed carry class, that's not sufficient training. If you're going to be a responsibly armed citizen, that is a constant training requirement. When you're carrying a gun in a public place, that's a lot of responsibility. And shooting at a piece of paper once or twice a month is not sufficient training to be carrying a loaded weapon in public places. So I continue to train. In fact, I'm going to Tennessee in a few months. I'm taking a class called Fighting Pistol, where you have to, move and shoot, run and shoot, learn to rack the gun on
Oh,
the
wow.
slide on your leg when you've only got one hand to work with and that sort of thing. But I really want people to get more serious about training, and so that's kind of what got me into the whole the training aspect of it too, is seeing that too many women were not carrying. A lot of women, I found out after talking to people that were taking classes, there were hardly ever any women in the classes. So I started asking women, why, do you carry a gun? Oh yeah, but so you don't take any classes? No, it's all guys, and I'm not really comfortable with the guys for instructors because I feel like they're going to think I'm stupid. And so I thought, there's really a need for more women firearms instructors. And today, one of the greatest rewards to me, there are two. One of them is when a woman comes back to me, or a man for that matter, and says, thank you so much for what you taught me. It saved my life. I was involved in a situation, and if I hadn't had a gun, I probably would be dead. And in every case that I've ever been into contact with students regarding use of firearms, they've never had to pull the trigger. Simply pulling a gun like you mean it and like you've been trained stopped the threat, which is ultimately what all gun owners hope, is that we don't have to pull the trigger. But knowing that it can save people's lives, but also actually getting women so inspired and motivated that they become firearms instructors. And I just returned from Alabama, where a lady who's taken my class twice there when I was in Alabama, she's now an NRA certified instructor, and she's training women, and every day on her Facebook page I'm seeing different groups of women that are now tactically confident because she's training them, and I'm just, that is so exciting to me.
I can imagine.
It's like planting a seed in a garden,
Right,
bursting forth.
right.
So
But then you gain some real notoriety because of making a choice about who you want to instruct and who you want at the gun cave. So tell us
Exactly.
a little bit about that.
how much
how I
time do
knew
you have? How much time do you have? That was just a little bit controversial, wouldn't you
Yeah,
think?
just a hair.
Just a tad. Okay. Actually, if you want to get to the bottom of that whole story, you would have to look at my history with Islam. I've been trying to educate people about the Islamization of our country for 5 or 6 years. I've been studying Islam for 12 years. When 9/11 happened, I was a TV news anchor and reporter, and I was getting dressed for work when I saw those planes, both of them, fly into our Twin Towers. And I honestly, at that point, I knew nothing about Islam. And I said, who would do this? What kind of people would be willing to risk their lives to actually commit suicide and then kill 3,000 innocent people for what? Is this really about American foreign policy? I mean, what? So I started studying. And the more I learned and the more I read, the more I began to understand. I read the Quran. I studied it for 12 years because I wanted to know who these people were. What is Islam? Why is it that they seem to be at war with the world? Why is it everywhere you look that a majority of the wars that are taking place around the world involve Islam? And the more I read and I studied, the more I learned what the real root of the problem is. And it is Islam. And anyone who's honest about it, who really knows Islam, will have to admit that they've got, there are 109 verses in the Quran that dictate hate, murder, and terror against all human beings who refuse to submit or convert to Islam. When you've got those kinds of verses in your Quran, and this is what you're supposed to live by, and you have a prophet who was a documented mass murderer and pedophile. I mean, Muhammad is to Islam what Jesus is to Christianity. This is who we're supposed to emulate. Well, if Muslims are devout and they follow those 109 dictates in their Quran and they follow the life of Muhammad, I mean, read his history. So that really made a lot of things clear to me. And then our own FBI discovered the Muslim Brotherhood's documented plan for the destruction of this country from within. That's not Jan Morgan. That's the FBI, okay? That's common knowledge. The information is out there. You can read the actual documented plan that they found when they did a raid on Muslim Brotherhood operatives, okay? So they're already halfway through that plan. Half of it has already been accomplished in this country. And the greatest threat that is coming from Islam is not the physical acts of terror that we and Americans are so focused on. And of course we want to stop those. But while Americans are so busy worrying about physical acts of jihad, the real danger is the civilization jihad that is occurring here in America. And what is civilization jihad? I can tell you. I knew you were going to ask that next. Civilization jihad is the methodical infiltration of virtually every facet of our society. It is a destruction from within, like the Muslim Brotherhood talks about. And it's not a big secret that they're using our own Constitution against us. So it is infiltration in the executive branch. the judicial branch and the legislative branches of our government. We already have judges in over 50 court cases in the state who've allowed Sharia law to trump constitutional law in cases involving Muslims. Well, I'm sorry, people, but that is an outrage. We don't live by Sharia law in America. We live by constitutional law. And I'm all about people coming to this country and assimilating. I'm not about people coming to this country and changing America to a different culture. You know, we can combine cultures and we can live together, but there's not any other culture that comes here and demands that we become what they are. There's no other culture that brings with it its own system of law and says, this is the law we want to live by. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at what's happening in Irving, Texas, where their city is fighting against a Sharia law court, where the people there, the Muslim communities there, is saying, we don't want to bring our cases to your constitutional law courts. We want to do it our way. Well, Sharia law is a very barbaric form of law, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know what I'm talking about. It involves honor killing your children if they bring embarrassment to your family name. It involves stoning to death women if they're found to be involved in some sexual indiscretion. No proof needed, just if your husband thinks that you've been involved. It allows the rape of women who, by their husbands if they so choose. It allows the murder of innocent children. It allows the hanging of gay people simply because they're gay. I mean, these are not values that we live by in America. So even people who are Islamic scholars, like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who I debated on Fox News, I have the utmost respect for him. He is a Muslim. He's a man who served our country honorably. He is a man who's being very honest about what is wrong with Islam, and he's trying to get followers of Islam to stand up with him and say, look, we have a problem within Islam and we need to deal with this. He is saying that we need to get rid of the theocracy part of it. See, that's the Sharia law part. He knows. And so he's trying to get Muslims in America to band with him and say, okay, let's go in here and let's go through this and say, okay, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. Let's eliminate those things so that we can peacefully coexist in America and everywhere else in the world. Do you know Dr. Jasser, I challenge you, if you want to know more about this incredible man, go on YouTube and look at a documentary he did back after 9/11 happened. It's called The Third Jihad. Dr. Jasser was a Muslim who are like many Muslims in America, who are not killers. They aren't terrorists. They don't condone terrorism. He was just a good guy. I mean, he served our country, living the American dream. And then one day 9/11 happens, and he was as shocked as many of us. He was like, what? You mean followers of Islam did this? And so he stood up and he said, he started contacting imams around the country, and he said, look, we've got to stand up to the American people and tell them this is not Islam. We have to let people know this is not what we believe in. And he said, Jan, not only could I not get a single Muslim to stand with me and have a big press conference and say, no, this kind of terrorism, we don't condone these kinds of acts. He said, I was excommunicated from Islam. So that's what he talks about in the documentary, and he warns America about the very same things I'm talking about. I'm not some person from, out here in the middle of Arkansas just coming up with all this stuff. I'm simply sharing with you things that I've been studying and reading from people who are much smarter than I am. Former federal prosecutor Andrew McCarthy wrote a book this thick, it's like Moby Dick, and it's called The Grand Jihad, and he talks about the threat facing America from Islam. And Nani Darwish has written 4 or 5 books. Now, Nani is a Muslim that I have a great deal of respect for. She fled Islam because of all of those 109 verses, because of the violence in it. And she's written books trying to warn Americans about, here's the threat we face. And she says, what I just said, our biggest threat in America is not the acts of terror at the hands of jihadists, it is the civilization jihad that is occurring. And when we have schools in America who are not allowing Christians to pray in school, but allowing students to go on entire field trips at mosques, there's a problem with that. I say, if you're gonna remove religion from the schools, let's remove all of it. Let's just keep it all. This is a state kind of situation. It's a public school. Let's keep religion out of it. Or if you're going to bring religion in, then bring it all in. And say, here are all the religions out there, and have classes or some kind of theology class or whatever. But that's what started the thing. My history with Islam goes way back. I've been getting death threats from Muslims for 5 years. So what happened that kind of finally made me say, okay, that's it with my gun range here in Hot Springs, was that we had the beheading in Oklahoma. a beheading, a beheading. Those kinds of things don't happen in America. Those happen in third world countries. Well, guess what? It's here. So we had the 9/11 terror attacks, we'd had the Boston bombings, now we've had San Bernardino. It just goes on and on and on. And then there was the beheading in Oklahoma. That's real close to home. So I decided, and then I had a couple of guys walk in my range, and they had Allah Akbar ringtones on their phone. In other words, every time their phone would get a text message, Allah Akbar, and the people in my range were like, okay, these people could not speak English, very little English at all. They did not have state-issued photo IDs, and they wanted to rent weapons, rent firearms. They wanted me to train them. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work here. I did let one of them shoot there because he did have a valid state-issued ID, photo ID from the state of California. Shock, shock. So I was like, okay, fine. But I went in him and I stood by him the entire time he was in the range. No one else would even go in the range with him when he shot because that's how bizarre they were acting. They were looking at the cameras, security cameras I had there. They were just acting really strange. And I said, you know what, that's enough. I've had enough of this. And so that's when I stood up and said, okay, this is not going to happen in my facility. I'm going to decide who shoots here. And I am not going to hand a loaded gun to someone who aligns himself with a religion that commands him 109 times in his Quran to murder people who refuse to submit or convert to that religion. And although I'm not saying that every Muslim who walks in my facility is a terrorist or wants to kill non-Muslims, what I am saying is if you are an adult, I hold you accountable for the religion that you align yourself with. And I assume if you align yourself with Islam that you have read your Quran. I've read it and studied it, and I'm not even a Muslim. I know what's in your book. So if you're an adult and you align yourself with that ideology, then I'm going to say, okay, then you must believe in those 109 verses. And since I have no way of knowing which Muslims are going to be devout and which ones are going to be peaceful, I'm just going to err on the side of caution and say, you know what? This is not going to be the place for you to shoot. And I'm very comfortable with that. And once I drew that line in the sand, I have stuck with it. And when the CARE contacted the DOJ and said, you've got to do something about this woman, she can't do that, I said, yes, I can, I am, and I'm going to continue to do so. And in fact, I will close my doors before any government agency comes into my business and tells me, you have to run it this way. I am not a coffee donut shop. We're not serving food here. We're serving lethal weapons. And I have full discretion over who is handling lethal firearms in my facility. One mistake on my part could result in the death of an innocent person. And I don't just look at people because of their background. I look at how you act when you walk in my facility. We are a private club. You have to be a member to shoot there. In order to shoot there, you've got to fill out some paperwork. Nowhere in that paperwork does it ask you what is your religious affiliation. Not once. Nowhere. There's no sign in my facility that says Muslims aren't allowed here. In fact, I can tell you that 2 have shot there. But these are people, one is a Marine, he was in a wheelchair, he had served his country honorably. I felt really good about this guy. I am a very good reader of people, and when you walk into my facility, I start reading you instantly, and I start talking to you and asking you questions, and if I feel that you are there with an agenda to accomplish, you're going to be sent packing without me even asking you. So anyway, that's long story. You asked for it. So that's kind of where, and it's evolved. And since I took that stand, gun ranges and gun stores in 6 states have followed my lead. And the thing about it is, you don't even have to be a private club. Private clubs are exemption from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But setting that aside, many of these places who've taken that step are even bolder than I am in that they aren't a private club and they don't have that exception. But here is our ace, so to speak. The ATF, when you apply for a federal firearms license, I am a federally firearms license facility. When I apply for a federal firearms license to sell and transfer firearms, ATF doesn't hand those licenses out easily. They come and sit down with you. It is an in-depth interview. It's a very, and it's a progressive level of steps, and they check you out thoroughly. They know the number of hairs on your head. So, when they do that, one of the things they say to us, they say to all federal firearms license facilities, is this. When someone comes to your facility and they're going to engage in a firearms transaction, whether it's to rent a gun, to buy a gun, to sell, whatever, even if they pass the background check, no matter how good things look, if you have a feeling in your gut, for whatever reason, that this person might use a firearm in the commission of a crime, we the federal government, ATF, we want you to err on the side of caution and stop the transaction. No explanation needed. Because we would rather you not take a chance than to take a chance with someone that you feel might use that firearm in the commission of a crime. So that is a lot of discretion and leeway that we have. And I think to this day, that's the reason the DOJ has left me alone, because they know what their folks tell those of us. And they don't want us to just, hand firearms to anyone. And I have turned people away for a number of reasons. So if you walk in my facility and you smell like alcohol, guns and alcohol don't mix. I had some folks walk in the other day that looked like gangsters and thugs. I didn't like their whole disposition, the way they were acting. I said, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for us. Because we have a certain kind of people. We have a lot of families that shoot there.
Right.
People bring their children to train. It's a very warm and friendly environment. It's just like you have your niche of friends and people you feel comfortable around. Well, that's kind of how we are there.
What is the age limit? I mean,
There is no age limit.
Okay.
In fact, there's a police officer here in Hot Springs that has I think his son's probably 5 or 6 years old. And that little boy outshoots many adults I know. But he shoots a little .22. We allow people to bring their kids in there to teach them how to shoot with a BB gun. You start with the small things. We have a virtual range, which is a shooting simulator system. A lot of families come in and work on that because you can take your whole family in the room. You don't have to have ear muffs and ear protection because you're not shooting real guns, but you're shooting in a virtual kind of setting, and it allows people to get exposed to firearms, to shooting sports without the live fire noise, the stress and the pressure from that for people that are brand new. In fact, people that take my classes that are brand new shooters and even experienced shooters, we still get them shooting really well in that virtual range before I ever take them over to live fire. So by the time I get you to live fire, it's a piece of cake. I mean, you shouldn't have any issues. But we get a lot of families in there. Kids shoot for free at our place. That's kind of our way of saying we care about the future of the Second Amendment, and these kids are our future. So we love kids to be involved in shooting sports. We do monitor that very closely. You can't just take your kids in the range and turn them loose. Everyone under the age of 18 must be accompanied by their parent. Not a guardian, not another adult, by their parent. You have to stand right there with them. We have a certified range safety officer on duty at all times. And I have stepped in a couple of times where I felt like the firearm that a father was about to let his little girl shoot was too much for her. And I'll say, not at my place. That's way too much power for her, because we're not going to have happen at our facility what happened at the range in Arizona where they gave that little girl a fully automatic weapon. We want it to always be a good experience for kids. So, and we're tactful about it, but at the same time, we're the boss. And we have a 100% accident-free record at our facility. There aren't many indoor ranges who can boast that. And as sure as I say that today, we'll have one tomorrow. But
No.
but but we have cameras on every lane. In fact, when I'm not in town, my husband runs that facility. He's a certified range safety officer and certified instructor. And if we both have to leave, we shut the place down because I don't trust anyone else to really keep an eye on those shooting lanes and make sure that everyone has a good, safe experience there.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. You have educated me very well tonight.
Oh, well, good.
And I appreciate you
Good.
sharing
I
all
want
of
you
that.
to come shoot.
Yeah.
I want you to come out and train
I'd like to do
with
it.
me.
I'd like to do it.
I'll turn you into a gun chick.
Yep. Hey, I'm willing to try anything.
Okay. And bring
you.
the camera. We'll just do the whole thing. We'll video the whole thing and let you kind of go through the experience.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be
Oh,
fun.
can I say something else real quick? I don't
sure
know
can.
what your time limit
Yeah,
is. But
sure.
The cool thing is, people now are coming to Hot Springs from all over the world, to shoot at our facility, to become members of our facility. We have seen over the past year, we now have members from Australia, from Sweden, from Africa. I had a police officer from the UK come there, bring his wife, and they took our gun class. You don't realize how good we have it in America until you talk to people. And of course, I know he's from the UK. I'm looking at his ID and her ID, and but even their police officers there don't get to have guns.
Wow.
Yeah, how can you protect the citizens? You got to, because in a gun-free society, the criminals still have guns, which is my whole point about the Second Amendment. You take the guns away from law-abiding citizens, the thugs and the bad guys are still going to have the guns. And so I asked him, I said, and I videotaped this and put it on my Facebook. I said, so how is it? What happens in the UK when you as a police officer run against a bad guy with a gun? What do you do? He said, well, I asked him politely to drop it. I said, well, how well does that work for you? And he said, not too good. And I said, then what do you do? And he said, I asked him a little louder. He said, it doesn't usually go very well. The SWAT team, those are the only folks in the UK that get to carry firearms. Wow. He was quite a good shooter because he'd been in the military there. And we have people from Australia, a physicist and his daughter, who come to America for 5 weeks every year on vacation, and the gun cave in Hot Springs is one of their destinations. We've trained them twice. They've taken our class twice now. So
Well, you've put us on the map for sure.
no, Hot Springs was already on the map. You know, and people would argue about whether they like the way I've, added to the Hot Springs notoriety now. There are people that hate me for what I do. But you know what? Let me tell you this, and I shared this on Fox News. When the FBI counterterrorism unit sends a special agent, well, in fact, they called me on my cell phone. I was in bed. My husband and I were in bed, and my cell phone rings. And I looked at it, and I said, I don't recognize this number. And my husband said, well, answer it. So I said, hello? And the voice at the other end of the line said, Jan Morgan? I said, yes. And he said, this is Special Agent Chris McCaslin with the Counterterrorism Unit of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Wondering if me and my supervisor would like to talk with you sometime today. Could we meet with you and talk? And I just started laughing. I said, seriously? I mean, I thought it was a joke. I said, okay, who is this really? And he said, this is Special Agent Chris McCaslin. I said, okay. Wait, this is really confusing. This is not how you guys, you're asking for a meeting with me? I thought you guys came barreling in your black SUVs and shut down the place and demand time. I said, this is really nice of you to ask. He just started laughing, and I said, so is this optional? Do I need a bail bondsman or something? I mean, he said, no, you're not in trouble. But, well, you are, but you aren't. He said, we need to meet with you at the Sheriff's Department. I said, can my husband come? And he said, I would appreciate it if he would. So we meet them at the Sheriff's Department. They show us their credentials. The supervisor of the counterterrorism unit and the special agent sat down with me, and he said, ISIS is in Arkansas. They've targeted one of our soldiers' sons who was dropping bombs on ISIS targets in Syria. He said, they're after his son now. And he said, they're also after you. You have become a target, and you need to understand what that means. I said, I understand completely what that means. He said, well, I'm not sure you do. But he said, your picture with your AR-15 and these pictures of you with firearms are all over the world now. They're in Cairo, Egypt. They're on every Muslim Brotherhood terrorist site out there. And he said, we're monitoring the chatter. We're going to do our best to protect you, but you need to understand what this means. I said, oh, I understand completely. I said, if you've been in my cell phone, which I'm sure you have, you've been in my cell phone, my emails, my Facebook, my everything. I said, then you know I've been getting death threats from Muslims for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Hence, one of the reasons I said my range is a Muslim-free zone. Mm-hmm. You know, why would I risk that? Why am I going to let people who align themselves with that and people who threaten my life come in and hand them loaded guns? Why would I do that? It doesn't make. So once people understood that about me, nobody told that story. The Arkansas Times didn't tell that story. Nobody else bothered to get that story from me. Oh, well, maybe the reason she doesn't want these people in her range is that they've threatened her life. So anyway, we took a stand, we stood by it, and it's been the best decision I ever made in my life. Don't regret it for a minute. In spite of all the nasty names some people have called me, I was like, you know what? I get death threats for what I stand for. So you think calling me a bigot or a racist? And by the way, Islam is not a race, just so you know. But calling me names is kind of juvenile, and yeah, it doesn't bother me. So,
Well,
besides, I'm heavily armed always, and that's an understatement.
Yes, I can
Heavily,
imagine.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Absolutely.
And I will have to see you on the range.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
We would like to thank today's guests and, of course, our special guest, Jan Morgan. This has been your Arkansas Herald News with Brenda.
Hey, Brenda. How you doing? Hey, listen, while you're here, I got to change the set out here. Would you mind holding that for me right there? Yeah. We've got a play coming up here called Four Weddings and an Elvis, and that really helps. I appreciate it. Listen, do you need more makeup, or are we okay?
I think we're out of here, guys.
You're a celebrity. I just want to get you in the camera.
Thanks.
Is that okay?
I love it. I love it. Oh, that was awesome.